This video will cover one of the main skills that we teach in Cooking Matters programming, reading food labels, but specifically sugar and discussing sugar. I'll talk to you about best practices for teaching this technique so that participants get the most out of their experience. We're going to begin with where to start when discussing sugar, and then talk about a review of reading the food label, and then we'll go into how to make grams into a visual aid. So first we'll talk about, in general, when reading food labels, it's really important to understand that there's a lot of different things that you can talk about, so narrowing your focus is really important. When we're talking about any new lesson, we want to make sure we gauge our participants' understanding. And so a great place to start is by asking where they think they should look first on the nutrition facts label. Any type of conversation or feedback is important, so encouraging that discussion is really valuable. But what we're looking for is a serving size. So we want to look at the serving size first, and then the servings per container next. And in this lesson specifically, we're going to focus on sugar. So we want to have our participants identify where sugar is located on the nutrition facts panel and be able to read what that line says. So in order to make this the most effective tool for our participants, we want to make sure we have bottles for them or products for them to hold in their hands and practice this skill. I like to be really strategic for this specific topic about what bottles I choose because there's a lot of different learning opportunities we have. One great option is a sports drink because a lot of times they have multiple servings per container. Like this one has 2.5 servings in a container, which you'll have to consider that calculation. Another option I like to look at is 100% fruit juice and then a fruit flavored drink. So this is really important because sometimes there's more sugar in the actual 100% juice than there is in the fruit drink, but there's an opportunity to talk about what the difference is with 100% juice versus a fruit flavored drink. So for example, I would ask the question, what are some of the benefits of drinking 100% juice over a fruit drink? And that's where you can talk about, maybe participants will come up with the idea that it's natural sugar versus processed sugar. Another couple of things I like to include are some sort of cola beverage and then a coffee drink because they tend to have a lot more sugar than people realize. And then doing a milk, some sort of milk comparison, so regular milk with a chocolate milk so that you can see the difference in sugar. And then thinking through things like dairy. Dairy is a good example because sometimes people don't realize that there's so much sugar in it, and then offering examples of ways to make smarter choices. So a plain yogurt versus a flavored yogurt, and then coming up with ideas about how we can make our yogurt taste better by adding our own fruit, for example. So ultimately in this lesson, since we're talking about sugar, sugar is measured in grams, and you can use that as an opportunity to ask participants, what do you notice about sugar? And they might say that it's in grams and there's no % daily value. So we want to make something like grams more relatable to our participants. We have this great tool, 4 grams equals 1 teaspoon. And so what we'd like to do is take the total number of grams in the product, divide it by 4, and that gives us the total number of teaspoons. So for this activity, there's a number of ways that you can show this. And having hands-on opportunities for participants is really key. So there are a number of different ways to do this activity. One is that you can have cups available and you can divide out into smaller groups and give each smaller group a product. They can identify the number of grams of sugar and then come up with a calculation for teaspoons and then have them measure out the sugar. So having sugar and a teaspoon available, once they figure out the total number of grams and the total number of teaspoons, they can measure out and then come back and share with the class. So the other thing we can do is if maybe math skills or time is of concern, then we can pre-measure and ask participants to guess what cups they think go with what products. I've already written them on the cups so it's easier to see, but you can use whatever method you find most valuable. And another really important thing to remember that with any of these strategies, that using hands-on learning and allowing your participants to actually do this is going to be most effective for their learning. So if time doesn't allow or these options don't work for you, you can also use pre-measured sugar tubes. So finding products that are familiar to your participants is really important, and the opportunity to compare like items is also important. The same calculation or equation applies 4 grams equals 1 teaspoon, and then you would just add that to the sugar tubes. So in this example, it took 4 sugar tubes to make 1 bag of Skittles. And make sure to remind participants that it's not about a brand, and it's not about a store, and it's not about a particular product or product type. This is a skill set that we're wanting to allow our participants to have the opportunity to practice at home, and so that they can identify the sugar in any food that they choose to eat. It's really important too to make sure that you ask questions to participants to engage their learning. A great way to do this is when you're comparing like items or an item that they're familiar with, to ask them what might be a healthier choice that they could try, and potentially practice this at home when they're ready. So our goal is to empower families with the knowledge that they need to make the best decisions for them. Thank you for watching this video. For additional information, remember to refer to your instructor guide, facilitator flipbook, or your toolkit. And remember to always use facilitated dialogue and hands-on learning when teaching Cooking Matters lessons.